Wake up, you ain't heard the news. Fast breaks on your screen, always making moves. Thank you for joining me here live on the Fast Break Sports Hour. Man, it's a Wednesday 12-12 edition. You know, we like them numbers combining just like that. Oh man, it's been a while since I've been with y'all. The Fast Break Sports Hour live, well, and kicking. Thank you for joining me here tonight. A little bit later than usual. I mean, damn, I've been working. I would love to have my shows at, you know, 3 p.m., 4 p.m. Mountain Standard Time, Pacific Standard Time, but it's just not working that way because I'm working that way and I got to bring it to you when I can, and I can't be gone that much longer. Definitely had to get this show in before Thursday night football because can't really talk about what happened on Sunday and Monday in the NFL on Thursday, because you got to get ready for the next week. Week 15 is going to be, man, it's going to be crazy because when you look at it, once you start seeing games on the schedule on a Saturday, it's down to the nitty gritty. Teams fighting for playoff spots, teams understanding that there's no more slip ups. This is it. When you start seeing those X's on teams, in the standings, whether it means wild card or you get like a little Y for winning your division, or maybe you clinch to bye, that's when the season's really starting because you start separating the contenders from the pretenders, and we have some pretenders that are still haven't been eliminated. Still part of the playoff race, but they shouldn't be. Uh, Realistically speaking, I mean, we have some teams that need a lot of help. I'm not going to count those teams out because we've seen in past. For those of you that follow football, you've all seen in the past where there's a team coming to the last week of the season that they need a win, and then they need Team A, Team B, and Team C to lose, and then they need Team D to lose by 30 points. Well, not so much like that, but you guys get the gist of what I'm talking about. If you're still in it, realistically, we're going to give you a shot. But let's say you're a team like the Cleveland Browns. All right, 5-7-1. Already with 7 losses, with the inability to reach 9 wins, which means the most of Cleveland Browns can do is get to 8 wins. You look at the wild card standings, and there's no shot there. There's no shot in the wild card because when you look at the Ravens, they're 7-6. They hold down the next spot. For 5-7-1 to jump over 7-6, whether it be the Ravens or the Dolphins, you would need them to lose out because they can go, man. If you go 8-7-1, and what you're hoping is for the Ravens and the Dolphins to each lose 2 games at a bare minimum for the Browns to have a shot. What's more realistic, but at the same time you're putting yourself in a tough position, is catching the Pittsburgh Steelers if you're the Cleveland Browns. But that doesn't mean you're getting to the playoffs because guess what? The Pittsburgh Steelers doesn't look like they're going to be there either. You look at the Steelers now at 7-5-1. And this is what I'm trying to get to. A team that everyone going into the season, they look at the Pittsburgh Steelers and they say, this is a team, you can mark them down as a playoff team. They're almost a sure bet to win the division. They're a team that's unstoppable offensively. Has a little bit of issues on the defensive side, though this year the defense has been slightly better, and it's been the offense that has been, man, you just really can't tell what they're doing as of late. They'll have drives where they look explosive, and then they won't do anything for 2 or 3 straight drives. The reason why I bring up the Pittsburgh Steelers is, okay, yeah, they have the 4th seed. They lead the division right now at 7-5-1, but they're on a downward spiral. Losing to the Raiders, losing to the Chargers, losing to the Broncos. How about the AFC West? Oh, man. Pittsburgh Steelers having trouble with the AFC West this week or this year. They're 0-4 in the AFC West. They lost week 2 to the Kansas City Chiefs, and then they lost their last 3 to the AFC West, which is incredible, which has put them in this position where they're 7-5-1. Where, some of you might say, well, they still hold the cards in their hand. But you're right, but you're wrong. Because guess who's coming to town Sunday? Tom Brady and Bill Belichick. How often do the Patriots lose 2 in a row? Not too often. And they're coming off of, and we're going to get to that game, they're coming off an incredible loss. Something you don't see but maybe once every, 10 to 12 years. Something like that happens. That was ridiculous, and we'll get to that here in a little bit. So they had that game. That's looking like 7-6-1. Then the week after, they're going to New Orleans. You better believe New Orleans is still playing for something because they are now back at the 1 spot after the Rams got beat up by the Bears, dominated by the Chicago Bears. Chicago Bears showed you they're real as long as they're playing at home. And they're going to be tough either way. But Pittsburgh going to New Orleans next week, or the week after week 15, which is where we're running right into week 15 with tomorrow night's game, the Kansas City Chiefs versus the Los Angeles Chargers. What a way to start your week. Lucky you, right? So the Steelers, after hosting the New England Patriots on Sunday, will be going to New Orleans. I mean, you could easily put them at 7-7-1. And then here we go. Last game of the season. The Pittsburgh Steelers. I don't know. When you're 7-7-1 and you're Pittsburgh, do you even care about the last game? Because if you get to 7-7-1, you're not getting to the playoffs. Because worst case scenario, like I mentioned, that wild card is going to be 9-7. That's worst case. When you're 7-7-1, you can't get to 9 wins. That tie you had against Cleveland really hurts now. It's a bummer, A lot of these teams are like, well, a loss, a tie is better than a loss. Yeah, it is, but it's not as good as a win. And that's what these teams will be lacking, is that win. So Pittsburgh's looking, like I said, Cleveland has a shot to catch Pittsburgh. That's about it. But Cleveland has no shot to get to the playoffs. That last wild card spot is going to be at a bare minimum 9-7. That's worst case scenario. I guarantee you that. You're not going to be seeing an 8-8 team or a team with 8 wins in that last wild card spot in the AFC. Chargers, man, they're the first wild card spot at 10-3. And they're looking at hopefully trying to find a way to get to that 1 seed, which would take a victory tomorrow, plus a little bit of help. They would need the Chiefs to lose another game, just because the Chiefs have a better division record, and they would be tied, and the Chiefs had already beat them week 1 of the season, if you guys remember way back when. But the Chargers can do it. The Chargers can get that win tomorrow. Now, they can't control what happens to Kansas City after that, but the Los Angeles Chargers could definitely go into Arrowhead and surprise a few people. Not surprise themselves. I believe the Chargers can go toe-to-toe with anybody in the league. They're one of those teams where they get up for a challenge, like they proved a couple weeks ago on Sunday Night Football against the Pittsburgh Steelers, coming back from 23-7 and beating the Pittsburgh Steelers, which continued the Steelers' downfall, which, man, 3 losses in a row. You're looking at 4, 5, possibly 5 losses in a row for the Pittsburgh Steelers. And what happens then? All hell will break loose. Now, in the AFC, 8 wins isn't enough. That's not going to get you a playoff spot. 10-6 is definitely going to get you in. If you go 10-6, you're going to get into the playoffs. 9-7, worst case scenario. And let's break that down real quick, because in the NFC, it doesn't look as daunting of a task to get into the playoffs, and nor do you have to win 10 games to get into the playoffs in the NFC. And actually, it's impossible for the second wild card team to win 10 games. NFC is a little bit, I don't want to say it's more of a battle for those 2 wild card spots, but that last wild card spot is not going to have a great record. They might have a 8-win season. That's a possibility in the NFC. A real high possibility for that happening in the NFC. Look, in the AFC, it's simple. The Kansas City Chiefs 11-2. They look like they're going to be the team with home field advantage in the AFC at 11-2. Because from there, again, I mean, you have the Chargers that are 1 game back, but it's really 1.5 because they don't have any tiebreakers, even if they win tomorrow. The Chargers are going to need some more help, and the Chiefs still have to play the Seattle Seahawks in Seattle. So there's a shot there because Seattle can beat anybody in Seattle with those crowds, with that crowd, that the number 12, the 12th man, with Russell Wilson and with the refs, man. You know the refs be on the Seahawks side, man. You saw a homeboy jump over the center and use some momentum pushing off to get that block. Now the final score was 21-7. Really should have been 21-0, but at the time it was 6-0. So that's a big turnaround. I still believe the Seahawks win no matter what in that game because the Vikings couldn't do anything. And we talk about that here in a little bit as well. But the Kansas City Chiefs, like I mentioned, they're going to go to Seattle. So, but first, Chargers have to do what they can control, win tomorrow, and then let whatever happen. You know, more than likely, Kansas City's going to end up being the number 1 spot. Wouldn't surprise me if the Chiefs, I expect the Chiefs to win tomorrow. I think it's more so I wouldn't be surprised if the Chargers won, but that would be a little bit, I would lean towards Kansas City. Obviously, they're at home. They have the leader in the clubhouse when we talk about MVP, Patrick Mahomes, with a no-look pass against the Baltimore Ravens. The Kansas City Chiefs had a hell of a time on Sunday. We'll get to that as well. But in the AFC, you have the Chiefs, and then you have 2 teams that really fumbled their chance to get a stranglehold on number 2 because neither I wouldn't have thunk that either of the 2 were going to lose on Sunday. When you talk about the New England Patriots and the Houston Texans, the New England Patriots, man, 9-3 going into Sunday into Miami, and you saw the record. I brought it up. Man, Tom Brady 7-9 all time in Miami, 1-4 in his last 5 in Miami, and the game was back and forth. It was a hell of a game. There was never really a moment where one team took control of the game until, seemingly at the end, it looked like the Patriots had this all but wrapped up with that field goal, 33-28, with a few seconds left on the clock. And with the Dolphins having the ball, I believe, at the 31-yard line, somewhere around there. I believe it was a 31-yard line. Obviously, Tannehill is not going to get it to the end zone. Come on. Because he has to throw it 69 yards plus whatever his drop back is, which is at least 5 yards. So he would have to launch that thing 74 plus yards. It's not going to happen. Tannehill cannot get it down that far. So why Rob Gronkowski was on the field? I was in shock, first of all, because when I saw the play unfold, it's one of those things where you always hope something like this happens. So I'm watching it live. And Tannehill drops back to pass, throws about a 15-yard pass in the middle of the field to Kenny Stills. And he could have easily been tackled there, but no tackle. He pitches it off to Devontae Parker. Devontae Parker then pitches it back to Kenyon Drake. And Kenyon Drake kind of runs and then takes it to the middle and then comes back to the sidelines, kind of like he's going to go back that way. He's looking for someone to pitch it to, and he's like, I just got to go. Because it just looked like everybody was just sitting there waiting for someone else to tackle him. And it looked like, man, you saw Gilmore on the play. He's just looking like he's protecting the pitch back as opposed to going for the tackle. And Kenyon Drake starts running towards the middle of the field, then he cuts to the outside. And I had no idea Gronkowski was on the field as all this is happening. And then I'm playing it in my head, and I'm like, okay, what if he cuts it back to the outside and he scores? But it's one of those things where it's like, it's not going to happen because this is incredible. It's not going to happen. And as he's cutting back to the outside, You can tell how Kenyon Drake was running that he knew he can outrun Gronkowski to the pylon. And Gronkowski slips a little bit because he's like, man, I wasn't out here for this. But just seeing Gronkowski on the field, I'm like, holy crap, the Dolphins are going to score. And even at that point, when he's like at the 5 yard line, I'm like, there's no way he gets in. And you see one of the cornerbacks for the Patriots come in from behind and try to dive at him, basically him and Gronk at the same time, to no avail. And man, craziest play you're gonna see this year. That's the play of the year, and that saved the Dolphins' season, man. And that hurt the Patriots. Now you look at the Patriots, who again are the number 2 seed, will probably, unless they have a slip up here, not gonna be an easy game in Pittsburgh, but more than likely can be the number 2 seed, and they need the number 2 seed. I believe a veteran team like the Patriots need the bye. I don't think a team like the Patriots can go through the wild card and have to win 3 games just to get to the Super Bowl. I don't think that's possible. That's just my opinion. That's how I view it. But you look at the Patriots and you look at Tom Brady, who arguably is the greatest quarterback of all time. I will argue that's probably the truth. That's my opinion. I will be biased before, just because I'm like, no, my quarterback's better than his at any given moment. But that's what Tom Brady is. But you look at the quarterbacks that the Patriots have lost to this year. All 4 games they've lost to on the road. They lost to Blake Bortles in Jacksonville. They lost to Matthew Stafford in Detroit. They lost to Marcus Mariota in Tennessee. And now they lost to Ryan Tannehill in Miami. So it's not like they're losing to Drew Brees or Aaron Rodgers or even a Kirk Cousins. They're not losing to the Bears defense. You know, they're not losing to teams like that. Phillip Rivers. They didn't lose to Patrick Mahomes. They're losing on the road, and this is the reason why, and this is the biggest difference. The Patriots, they can't win on the road. They struggle winning on the road. This is the old Patriots where they figured out ways to win, but they're still going to end up with 3 or 4, possibly 5 losses. So the Patriots need a bye, because obviously if you don't have the bye, at some point you're going to have to be on the road. Whether that be Kansas City, Houston, Los Angeles, if it gets to that point, depending on seeding or whatnot. But Miami Dolphins, man, what the heck? Out of nowhere, they're 7-6. And actually, if you look at it, the Dolphins have, I wouldn't say the easiest road, but the most realistic road to the playoffs. Especially if I believe what's going to happen to Pittsburgh happens. The Ravens will probably end up winning the North. You look at the Dolphins' schedule, they have a tough one at Minnesota. And Minnesota's going to need that game, because we'll talk about the NFC here in a little bit. Minnesota's going to need that game, so that's a tough one. But then they got a home game against Jacksonville. It's the Jaguars. You guys saw them on Thursday night. They didn't show up, but they were there. And then they finished the season in Buffalo. Obviously, Josh Allen's going to have a little bit more experience. Would I be surprised if Buffalo beat Miami? No. They can play spoiler. And my bias, I need these teams to lose. As a Bronco fan, that they have the hardest road to the playoffs out of these teams fighting for a playoff spot. They need a lot of things to happen. So much so that, I could break it down, but we'll get to that some other time. We'll see what happens this week. And if things fall in their favor, we'll talk about what needs to happen for the Broncos to get into the playoffs. But right now, it's Tennessee, it's Indianapolis, it's Baltimore, it's Pittsburgh, and it's the Dolphins. It's those teams fighting for that last wild card, and you got Baltimore and Pittsburgh fighting for the playoff spot for the North to win that division. So you have the Patriots at number 2. You have the Texans at number 3, who blew a chance to, first of all, win the division against the Colts and gave the Colts life. The Colts dominated that game after the first quarter. The 24-21 score does not indicate what actually happened in that game. It looked like Houston was going to come out and really put it to them. In the first quarter, Andrew Luck was struggling. He threw an interception. They couldn't get any points on the board, couldn't get anything going. But then man, Andrew Luck and T.Y. Hilton just exploded after that. They're like, okay, let's go. And the Texans had no answer. And once the Colts were up 24-14, late in the fourth quarter, the game was over. The Texans scored a late touchdown to kind of keep it close, but realistically, the Colts dominated that game past the first quarter and got a big victory. I didn't expect them to get this victory in Houston. What does all this tell you? What does this all, what does all this tell me? Is that there really isn't one dominant team that you can say for a fact in the AFC that you can say that team's going to the Super Bowl. I'll bet my house on it. You won't do it. You look at it, okay, the Kansas City Chiefs 11-2. They struggled against the Ravens. And the Ravens, again, fighting for a playoff spot, but they got a rookie quarterback. That they don't have a sure thing in the run game. So what they do is they have a running back by committee. And the Kansas City Chiefs, once Tyreek Hill had that little heel injury and he was coming in and out of the game, Patrick Mahomes is struggling. There was a good quarter and a half where they couldn't get anything going offensively, and the Chiefs looked like an average football team. But this is where Patrick Mahomes is special. Throughout all of that, was still able to come back in the fourth quarter, man, create a drive at the end of the game. Now, man, the no-look pass was incredible, man. I didn't see it live, but when I saw that on video, where he's looking one way and throws the ball the other way, that's strategically done. Man, I've never seen any quarterback do that. Every time you think Patrick Mahomes, you've seen it all, he does something different. They were able to pull that game out in overtime. One of the tougher games for the Chiefs this year. Obviously, they lost to the Rams. Obviously, they lost to the Patriots. But just speaking about a game in Arrowhead, that was definitely a challenge for them. And the Ravens, you might see the Ravens again in the playoffs. And the Ravens are something different once they get to the playoffs. They kind of get a feel for you in the regular season, and then in the playoffs, they just come out of nowhere. So you got 1 Chiefs, you got 2 Patriots, you got 3 Texans, and number 4 right now is the Pittsburgh Steelers. It doesn't, unless something drastically changes, unless the Pittsburgh Steelers get the monkey off their back and defeat the New England Patriots, it's looking like it's over, at least for this year. Let's just be real about it. Who has the confidence in here to say the Pittsburgh Steelers can beat Tom Brady? Nobody, Can it happen finally? Possibly. They're at home, so that helps. But nothing that they've done here in the last month tells me that they're a team that's going to do anything in the playoffs anyways. That looks like Ravens division, unless the Ravens just fall flat on their face. You look at their schedule, I believe they got the Buccaneers this week. Then they got the Chargers in a couple weeks on a Saturday. Then they end their season against Baker Mayfield. There you go. And the wild cards, like I mentioned, right now, they're the Chargers, Ravens, and then in order, you have still in the fight, the Dolphins at 7-6, the Colts at 7-6, the Titans at 7-6, and the Denver Broncos at 6-7. Who, they're only 1 game out when you look at the standings, but with tiebreakers, they're really 2 games out. So they need a couple of these teams to lose to. They need to win out, and then they need. I'm not gonna break it down. Or you know what? Let's just break it down real quick. Just real quick, real fast. You understand what the Broncos need to do to get to the playoffs, man. Some of y'all might be interested. So the Broncos are 6-7, right? So this is what they need to happen for them to get to the playoffs first. And this is probably the toughest part. You have to win all 3 games. That's going to be the toughest part. Because what they showed on Sunday against the San Francisco 49ers shows you're not going to beat anybody else on this schedule. If they play anything like they did against the 49ers, you're going to end up 6-10 if you're the Denver Broncos. And some of y'all are probably happy about that. Oh, yeah, we got top 10 pick. This year, it doesn't matter if you got a top 10 pick. It doesn't matter. There's no quarterbacks out there for you to say, yeah, we're going to get that quarterback. Not really. You know, Kyler Murray, don't even know if he's going to come to the draft. Looks like he might be playing baseball. Drew Lock, a lot of reports saying he might be a mid first round pick. He can be a third round pick. Not too impressed. Turnover prone. Haskins from Ohio State is probably your best bet. But even at that, he's only played this year. He's only a 1 year starter. You're going to have to check him out in the bowl game to see how he does against, I believe they play the Washington State, I believe, or the Huskies. I believe they play Washington State. And that'll be a good test to see how the quarterback does from Ohio State. Justin Herbert from Oregon, doesn't look like he's going to come out. It looks like he's going to go back to Oregon for his senior year. There's a rumor that the reason why he's coming back is because his brother is going to be a freshman next year for Oregon, and his brother plays tight end. So that makes sense. I mean, I would love to play with my brother if I was a badass quarterback and he was a badass tight end coming into Oregon, man. So hey, you got to give it to him. You don't have these chances. There's no guarantee that these guys will play on the team together again. So, you know, he wants to do that. But believe me, if Herbert was coming out, he would be a top 10 pick, most definitely, possibly a top 5 pick. Wouldn't be the number 1 pick, but who knows? Somebody might trade up and do something. But he more than likely will not be coming out this year. And Tua from Alabama can't come out, so. It looks like the quarterback class for 2020 is going to be much, much better. More comparable to this year's than the one that's coming out next year. And that's a bummer for teams that need quarterbacks. Let's just be real with it. But so the Broncos, again, you need to win 3 games. I know I'm going to jump it back and forth, but y'all stick with me here, man. Thank you for joining me here. The Broncos need to win all 3 games. That's the toughest part. And then they need these things to happen. They need the Colts and the Titans to lose 1 game. So 1 game, and that's good enough. They need the Dolphins to lose 2 games. And I already told you the Dolphins schedule. At Minnesota, Jacksonville, at Buffalo. So they have to lose 2 games. That's a have to. Or else there's no chance. And that can't be a tie. Nope. They have to lose 2 games. And then they need one more thing to happen. Either Pittsburgh or Baltimore lose 2 games. So they need 2 teams to lose 2 games. Pittsburgh or Baltimore and Miami. And again, Pittsburgh, it's possibility. Pittsburgh has New England, New Orleans, Cincinnati. You can see them losing 2 of those games. Baltimore is going to be tougher. Baltimore, Tampa Bay. Then they have Los Angeles, which is possible. They can lose to the Chargers. And then the last game against Mayfield, you know Baker's going to try to beat the Baltimore Ravens. Try to, But first and foremost, the Broncos have to win out. They have to set themselves up here. They got to get a win on Saturday against Baker Mayfield, which is not going to be an easy task. If anything, I would say the Browns are favored. I think the Browns are the better team right now. They got the better quarterback. They got the better receivers. Run game, oh man, that's a tough one. I'm going to give it to Lindsey, but Chubb's been, man, that might be a toss-up. And defensively, I'm still going to give the defense to the Broncos. I know with Myles Garrett over there with the Cleveland Browns, that's definitely a force to be reckoned with against our offensive line. But we're not going to talk about those games until Friday on Full Force Football Friday. But yeah, that's the first part for the Denver Broncos. You have to win on Saturday to have any shot. But if anything tells us, if what happened on Sunday to the Denver Broncos tells us anything, just tells us that this is it. It's over. Case Keenum, not what everyone expected, whether it's not having enough talent on the team, which you can argue, whether he's not comfortable in the offense. Obviously, he wasn't comfortable behind the line the whole year, but I'm not going to make any excuses for him anymore. When you give a quarterback that much money, he has to figure it out. He has to figure out a way to make everybody else better, or else he shouldn't be your franchise quarterback. He basically is what he is. He's just going to be here for a year or two, and there's going to be some teams that are going to lose quarterbacks this year or going to be searching for other ones, and you're going to have this quarterback merry-go-round this quarterback carousel. You know, some of these quarterbacks, like a Joe Flacco, especially with Lamar Jackson, already he's been anointed the starter. Joe Flacco is ready to play, but you Lamar Jackson's here to stay for the Ravens. Besides any, unforeseen injury, which again we don't hope for on this show, or I'm pretty sure nobody does. But Joe Flacco, he's definitely going to be on a different team next year. He's going to be starting for some team next year. He's not going to be a backup. Come on, Super Bowl MVP quarterback is not going to be, nope, not going to happen. He's not going to be on the bench. He's going to be starting for a team. He's going to have options. I'm pretty sure he's going to have a handful of options. Another one that I'm questioning is Derek Carr. I believe Derek Carr, by the time the Broncos, the Raiders get to Las Vegas, he's not going to be part of their plans. Can he be part of the plans for the Raiders next year? Possibly. I had said earlier this year when the season started that I believe Derek Carr, this was going to be it for the Raiders. But if you look at what they're doing, there's really no reason for them to unless they get another good, couple draft picks. I could see that. But if they're not going to Las Vegas next year, which might change because they're being sued by Oakland, by the council in Oakland because they're leaving, that's a whole different monster in itself. The Raiders might be forced to leave Oakland after this season when they weren't supposed to leave until after the 2019 season. But that's a whole different ball game there. At the end of the day, I just don't believe Derek Carr is in the plans of the Las Vegas Raiders. Oakland Raiders, yeah, sure, but not part of the Las Vegas Raiders in my book, in my point of view. And that's another option. Again, I'm putting quarterbacks out there that can realistically be traded and or will be released. You look at Eli Manning, though I don't think the Giants should. Simply because the quarterback class in the draft this year isn't impressive. I mean, they can always take a flyer on a quarterback like a Drew Lock or a Haskins, but they're not going to be ready to start. So just keep Eli Manning another year. They're looking better. They're 5-8 now. Remember, they were 1-7. They're winners of 4 or 5. So I believe the Giants will go one more year with Eli Manning, but that's another iffy one. You could see him on another team. But I believe the Giants should keep Eli Manning for one more year and see what they can do with that team until it's really time to get these good rookie quarterbacks in 2020 coming into the fold. The Redskins are going to be looking for a quarterback. It sucks what happens to Alex Smith. They definitely don't have a plan B there. So they can possibly, if they don't pick up, you can see Joe Flacco go to the Redskins. That might be a good fit. Maybe the Redskins won't trade for another AFC West quarterback in Derek Carr. We'll trade Case Keenum to the Redskins. We'll give you Case Keenum and the 6th. And you just give us a 5th. We're good to go. You can have Case Keenum. I hope Case Keenum plays great these last 3 games. It gives us a chance to make those games exciting. But the writing is on the wall. He's just not the quarterback of this team for the future. I always had those thoughts that maybe he can be like a Drew Brees. Maybe he's starting to get it. But no, he just looks like a more exciting Trevor Siemian. That's all he looks like. And unless you wanted a more exciting Trevor Siemian, he's not the answer. It's the same thing. He runs into sacks. Now, again, Trevor Siemian didn't have a good offensive line. Case Keenum doesn't have a good offensive line, and they both don't help each other out by running into sacks by leaving the pocket or scrambling to the outside, running right to the defensive end. I hope for the best for Case. I hope he really tears it up these last 3 games and more than likely will be the starter for the Broncos next year. But the Broncos need to find their real franchise quarterback because he's not going to be the answer. He doesn't elevate the play of other players. And you saw that on Sunday against the 49ers. He didn't elevate anybody's play. I'll tell you one thing about Case Keenum. He's definitely one of the clutchest quarterbacks I've ever seen. Because he won't do nothing for the first 3 quarters. But then in the 4th, he does everything he can to get you back in the game. You look at the wins the Broncos have had. The win against the Seahawks came back in the fourth quarter, got the win. Could have been a loss. Game 2 against the Raiders, last second field goal because he created that drive at the end. Should have been a loss. The Houston Texans ones created a drive to get that last field goal chance, missed the field goal. The game against the Chargers, they're down. They came back in the fourth quarter, got a win. Pittsburgh Steelers, same thing, down by a touchdown. Comes back in the fourth quarter, touchdown, gets the win. Big plays, man. And it should have never have came down to this. But if the Denver Broncos get the ball one more time in the fourth quarter, if the defense is able to stop them just once with 3 minutes left, Case Keenum's coming down and scoring a touchdown. That's going to happen. But that's the issue. We don't need Tim Tebow anymore. We need a quarterback that's going to be good in the first, the second, the third, and the fourth. Because that's what's happening here. The offense is not producing in the first half, and then the second half, it's like, okay, let's do whatever we can. We don't care what happens. Let's just go out there and just let it all hang out. They're not good enough to not do that. They got to do that from the beginning. You cannot play safe if you're a team like the Denver Broncos. You just got, man, you got to pull out all the stops. The Denver Broncos are notorious lately of playing to not lose games. They play it safe. They wait for the other team to make a first move, then it's like, okay, now we got to do something. That's not what championship football is all about. I said Case Keenum. Who knows what's going to happen there? The Cincinnati Bengals. What's going to happen there? Andy Dalton is not the answer there. Can Andy Dalton start for another team? Yeah, he can next year. Again, he can start for the Redskins. He won't start for the Broncos because we basically already have a shorter Andy Dalton right now. That's what we have. And Andy Dalton's probably a little bit better than Case Keenum, just a little bit. Can Andy Dalton go to Jacksonville? He'll help them out. He's a big upgrade opposed to Blake Bortles. Blake Bortles is not going to be the quarterback there next year, so Jacksonville is going to be looking for a quarterback. And that's the thing is, this was the year to be kind of like in the top 10 and have a high draft pick, but there's no quarterbacks. So it actually wasn't the year. So so what I'm getting at is, if there was quarterbacks that were worth a damn to use as a top 5 pick, it would be great to have the number 9 or the number 10 pick, because you would probably get that quarterback. Because you look at the bottom teams, the Cardinals, they're not going to draft the quarterback. The 49ers, they're not going to draft the quarterback. The Raiders, probably not going to draft the quarterback yet. Not this year. Those are your bottom teams. So it would have been prime for you to be one of those teams that are 4, 5, 6, 7 and get the first quarterback. But the first quarterback isn't worth that this year. Now, once we get through all the bowl games, I'm pretty sure there's going to be 2 quarterbacks that are probably late first rounders at best. They'll creep into the top 10. That's just the way it works, because a lot of these teams get greedy and they want to go get that quarterback of the future. They're like, it's got to be Patrick Mahomes. Whew. Patrick Mahomes and Deshaun Watson and Trubisky in the same draft. That's incredible. A lot of you teams missed out on that. And what, Deshaun and Mahomes were picked number 10 and 12 respectively? Y'all didn't do your homework on that. Oh man, I don't even want to think about it. It hurts my heart. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers, another team. Is Jameis Winston really going to stay as a Buccaneer? I believe he can start for somebody, but I just don't think it's working there. I don't think it's ever going to work there. He needs a change of scenery. I said that from before the season started. Jameis Winston needs to go to another team to see what he's actually all about. He needs to leave home. He's been at home the whole time. Florida State, Tampa Bay. Got to go somewhere else. Time to grow up. I believe he's a starting quarterback, but it's just not going to work in Tampa Bay. It's just not working there for either side. So I think they need to separate, part ways. And then there's another guy. And this one's going to be a surprise to some of you. Matthew Stafford. That's not going to work in Detroit no more. Now, a team will give him a shot. Oh, Cincinnati will give Matthew Stafford a shot. Oh, the Denver Broncos will give Matthew Stafford a shot. Oh, man, yeah, they would. Just ask me. Redskins will give Matthew Stafford a shot. So there's options there. I mean, it's easy for me to say because Detroit's probably saying, well, what are we going to do if we let Matthew Stafford go? Bring in Andy Dalton, draft a quarterback that's not ready. Matthew Stafford has hit his ceiling for the Detroit Lions. That's all I'm saying is sometimes these quarterbacks do all they can for a team, for an organization that's just not built to win. And that's what happens here. That's what's happening here with Matthew Stafford. He's done all he could. And he's played bad. He's played good. Times he's played great, especially early on in his career, but just wasn't enough. Can't get a victory in the playoffs. Never has. It was the Matt Ryan syndrome before Matt Ryan actually got to the Super Bowl. He should have a ring, but he doesn't have a ring. So you have these teams where it could be a quarterback carousel with the Bengals, the Jaguars, the Broncos, the Redskins, Giants, depending on what they do. Again, I don't think they need to get rid of Eli Manning, not yet. The Buccaneers. And the Lions, that's a wild card. I'm just throwing that out there. The Lions and Raiders, those are wild cards. You know, I wouldn't be surprised if these quarterbacks aren't playing for those teams next year. But everyone else is good to go. Everyone else is good to go. For the meantime, I wanted to put Ryan Tannehill in this conversation for the Dolphins, but when he's healthy, the Dolphins play really good, better than what they do when he's not, obviously. So there's something there. There's a combination of him and Adam Gase that works. Only issue is he's always hurt. So that's the only thing the Dolphins got to take into consideration. Can we go forward with the quarterback that probably isn't going to be available for all 16 games? He's going to miss at least 2 games every year. That's just that. Some quarterbacks are like that. Some quarterbacks are built that way. The Saints are back at the one spot with the Rams getting tore up by the Chicago Bears. The Rams, man, I'm telling you, I like Jared Goff, but he's not as good as what everybody thinks. He's not a top 5 quarterback. Trust me, he is not. McVay makes him look like a top 5 quarterback, but he's not that good. He's somewhere in between where he's number 9 to like number 13. That's where he is quarterback wise. But that coach makes him look much better. That running back makes him look much better. Still on the better half of the NFL when you talk about Jared Goff and these other, and he's young, but is he going to get better? Yeah, he's going to get better. Everyone gets better with knowledge and experience if they're born to play this position. But Jared Goff isn't as good as Carson Wentz. Come on, he just isn't. Not because Carson Wentz has a Super Bowl as a backup, and Carson Wentz coming off the ACL, but I just see it. I could see Carson Wentz bring his team back and put a team on his back. I think Jared Goff needs everything around him to work. Now he makes it look good. He can make all the passes, but I don't think he can do it on his own. I don't think he's one of those quarterbacks like a Tom Brady, like a Drew Brees, like a Phillip Rivers, like a Mahomes. That it doesn't matter who's out there, you're going to look good if you play the receiver position. That's just me with Jared Goff. A real good quarterback, just not. He's not a legendary quarterback, which many aren't. Like he's not a Ben Roethlisberger. He's not at that level. He's not at a Russell Wilson level. If you put Jared Goff on the Seattle Seahawks with that team, dude, really, you would really see what Jared Goff is all about. Again, not throwing any shade on Jared Goff, but I think it's too much hype there. People are too like, oh, 54 points, and look at this offense, and what happened against the Bears? No answer. He looked like Jared Goff from a couple years ago. That's what happened against the Bears. Let him get hit. Let him see some nasty defense. Oh, I've seen Aaron Rodgers beat down some nasty defenses. I've seen Drew Brees beat down some nasty defenses. Tom Brady does it all the time. Patrick Mahomes has done it already. Jared Goff, true colors come out when he plays against a real good defense. Many say, well, Cooper Kupp's not there. You got Brandon Cooks. You got Robert Woods. You got the best running back in the league, arguably, in Todd Gurley. And you put up 6 to the Chicago Bears, who, if you told me going into that game, the Bears are only going to score 15 points, I'm like, Rams are going to blow them out, right? But I did pick the Bears to beat the Rams, if you guys watched the show on Friday. That was my upset special. I didn't think it was going to be 15-6. I believe I had the Bears winning like 27-24, which, still pretty good. But to hold them to 6, that wasn't a mistake. That's not luck. Now, unfortunately, the Bears are not going to get the Rams in Chicago. And unfortunately for the Rams, they don't play in a dome anymore. They play on grass in Los Angeles. So if the Bears come and knock into Los Angeles, they're going to bring that defense with them. It's going to work there too. Now, I don't know if I picked the Bears to beat the Rams in Los Angeles, as I got my LA hat. This is for the Dodgers, though. That's it. That's my team in baseball. Don't get it twisted. The Rams, I would pick the Rams to win that game, but it'd be a tight one. Just because it's the first time the Bears have seen the playoffs. But if the Bears are able to get that, they're going to be real good at home in that first game. They got the division. That's locked up. They're in. They're going to be playing at home, whether it's against Seattle or whoever makes it in that second wild card. And let's break that down. Again, the Saints are number 1. They got tiebreaker over the Rams. The Rams lost to number 2. Then you have the number 3 team in the Chicago Bears, as I mentioned. And they'll be 3 or 4, but they're going to win the division. That's not a question. They're going to win the division at 9-4. The Dallas Cowboys at 8-5, they're going to win the division. That's not a question. Those 4 teams they're in, they're division champions. That's not going to change. Number 5, Seattle Seahawks, that's not going to change. Seattle Seahawks are going to be in as the number 5. So Seattle is going to go to either Dallas, more than likely, or go to Chicago. That's a hell of a matchup. But this is where it gets tricky. The Minnesota Vikings, who lost to the Seattle Seahawks on Monday Night Football, beat down. And I brought this stat out last Friday on Full Force Football. Well, it was Saturday. Full Force Football Friday on a Saturday, if that makes any sense. I said Kirk Cousins doesn't win on Monday Night Football. And he's not going to win on Monday Night Football. Not because it's Monday Night Football, because he's playing in Seattle. And Kirk Cousins is what he's always been. Oh, beautiful stats. Man, the dude's going to throw for 4,500 yards. Awesome. He's going to throw for 28, 29 touchdowns. Probably throw like 10 interceptions like he does every year. And then his team's going to be 7-9 or 8-8. Or since they have a tie, it might be 8-7-1 or 7-8-1. Right now, they're 6-6-1. What's the hype about? I'm going to pay you $90 million. You look good as a quarterback. But, dude, you got Stephon Diggs. You got Adam Thielen. You got Kyle Rudolph. You got a healthy Dalvin Cook with Latavius Murray. And you put up 7 in garbage time against the Seahawks. In garbage time. It should have been 0. The week before that, you put up 10 against the New England Patriots. It's in New England, but you put up 10. The Dolphins just put up 34. What did Mahomes put up? 40 on the Patriots? The Titans put up 34 on the Patriots? The Jaguars put, 31, 34 against the Patriots? Where's the Vikings offense? Now, they made an excuse. They fired their offense coordinator on Tuesday. Kind of like, well, this is why the offense isn't working. Okay. So I need the Vikings to tear up the Dolphins on Sunday. Or just win. See if you can score 24 points. That's all you got to do. They paid you $90 million or 84 to be exact. All guaranteed. Oh, you living nice, aren't you? Overrated quarterback. Will never, ever win a Super Bowl. Ever. That's not going to happen. Might make I don't even know. He might make 1 or 2 playoff appearances. Maybe. But that's about it, man. You know how the Broncos got saved here? I'm going back to the Broncos. They got saved because, yeah, they probably wanted Kirk Cousins, but they be going through the same thing. But maybe get to the playoffs at 9-7. That's probably what happened with Kirk Cousins. The only difference is, okay, the stats aren't that flashy, but we don't gotta pay 84 million as a Denver Bronco fan. Well, I don't pay, but I'm just saying the Broncos do. Don't gotta pay 84 million. Just gotta pay 25, which is still a lot for what's been happening, but man, it was a blessing in disguise. For the Vikings, it's like, okay, we don't got Case Keenum. We got Kirk Cousins. Oh man, this is great. This is for the Vikings. Vikings have never won a Super Bowl. Great for them. Hey man, y'all just want to make the playoffs. The Denver Broncos are about championships. Okay? And we understand that's not. I'm not getting back to the Broncos. I'm done with that. But the Vikings are 6-6-1. They're the second team in the wild card. But here we go. You got the Panthers at 6-7, half a game out, and they got a tough schedule. So I don't see them getting in. It's going to be very tough. The Eagles at 6-7, a little bit easier. There's a shot there, and I said they weren't going to get in, but there's a shot there. The Redskins at 6-7, definitely not going to happen. That's over. They're going to end up 6-10. I'm letting you know right now. The Redskins will be 6-10. What were they? 6-4 a couple weeks ago. 6-10 now. Packers 5-7-1. Possible. They don't have the tiebreaker on Minnesota, which means if they win out at 8-7-1, they would need the Vikings to go 1-2 the rest of the way. Possible. Oh, very possible. But who's to say the Eagles don't go 9? The Vikings and the Eagles, they get to 8-7-1. They need both of those teams to lose twice for them to have a shot. So more than likely, the last spot's going to go to Minnesota, Philly, long shot Green Bay, and a very long shot. And I saw this little thing played out because my brother's a Giants fan, so he sent me this thing that said, if this team loses twice, if this team loses twice, the Giants win out. Basically, the Giants, what has to happen for them is a little bit tougher than the Broncos, but it's kind of the same, you know. So I believe after this week, it probably might be more cluttered, but I think it'll be more realistic to say, okay, there's 2 games left. These teams actually have a shot. So let's give it another week. But it makes for fun football. It makes for you to be scoreboard watching. I mean, hopefully you're not a team hopefully you control your own destiny. That's what you want these last 3 weeks. You want to say, you know what, as long as we win, we're in. And that's what you shoot for. Or maybe you're already in and now we're trying to get the bye. We got to make sure we get the number 1 spot. But, I mean, just in general, if you still have a shot right now, you're still watching football and you're still happy. As opposed to, if you're out by now, you're just like, all right, let's just see what this team got. And that's not fun. I mean, you like to watch all the other teams, but it sucks when you watch a game and you know it's not going to affect anything that happens. And at point, you're like, I just wish we would lose so we can get a better pick. That sucks. I don't want to do that. So we're still in it. Got to win on Saturday, which makes it better because we'll be playing before all those other teams. And we'll find out then and there for the Denver Broncos if they're fortunate enough. So for the NFC, that's how that rolls. I believe those 5 teams are in. The Saints, the Rams, the Bears, the Cowboys, and the Seahawks. And you got 3, maybe 4 teams fighting for that last spot. But realistically, it's going to be Vikings or Eagles. Realistically. I mean, if you just had to bet something on it. I don't condone betting, but it's legal in the U.S. now, man. Do what you want to do. I don't know, man. The quarterback carousel. That's going to be very interesting. And obviously, we got 3 weeks left in the season. But we can start talking about it right now, especially for those teams that are already out. I think that's going to be I think it's going to be a little bit more than it was last year because you're going to have starters like Joe Flacco in the mix, possibly Andy Dalton in the mix. Eli Manning in the mix. Again, I don't believe so, but that's going to be a lot of people are saying this is it. We'll see. I mean, which for those of you that want the youth movement makes sense because they have stars that are all young for the New York Giants. So why not bring in a young quarterback? Why wait another year? It all depends what the Giants can pull off. Derek Carr is going to be available for the right price, and who's willing to do that. And Derek Carr is going to be a hell of a quarterback on a different team. Hell of a quarterback. But they gotta fix something there. Something's missing since he broke his leg. Just saying. That's just what I see. I'm not a doctor, but just watching this game, it's just not Derek Carr from 2016. It's just isn't. Yeah, I got a low battery, so almost time for me to wrap this thing up. Trying to see what else I can cover real quick. But Chiefs and Chargers, man, that's what's that's going to decide not just the number one. Well, it won't decide the number one seed because the Chargers are still going to need help, but it'll help them. It'll solidify who many believe the Chiefs are the better team or the Chargers. This will decide that tomorrow's game. This also might decide who the MVP is going to be, Patrick Mahomes or Phillip Rivers. That's another big thing that's going to happen. Again, thank y'all for joining me here live on the Fast Break Sports Hour. Man, love y'all. Much love, much respect. It's late. I understand that. Thank you for rolling with me. But that's going to decide it. Patrick Mahomes, Phillip Rivers. I think whoever's team wins and with a good quarterback performance, that might cap the MVP season. Because it's three people. Three. It's Phillip Rivers. It's Patrick Mahomes. It's Drew Brees. Now, Drew Brees has taken a hit the last 2 weeks, and the Saints were looking bad against the Buccaneers. Luckily, they figured it out a little bit in the fourth quarter, but they have issues. A lot of these teams have issues. When you look at everything, just everything, AFC, NFC, who can you count on right now? The Chiefs, maybe. We'll find out tomorrow. The Chargers, maybe. We'll find out tomorrow. Patriots, you don't know. I mean, they're going to be there in the end, but you don't know. You don't know if they're that team where you can just say, that's the team. The Texans, that's the team. You don't know about that. Colts had something to say about that. And the NFC, same thing. Saints haven't been too impressive the last 2 weeks. Still the number one seed. Rams, the Bears, looking good. But come on, no one's going to put the Bears in the Super Bowl. Can they get there? Man, they need a lot of things to happen defensively. And they do have the defense for it, but is that quarterback ready to take them there to the promised land? Can't be throwing picks in the playoffs. I mentioned before, you cannot be throwing picks in the playoffs. That's not going to fly. He threw picks against the Rams. Can't do that. That's not going to work in the playoffs. The Cowboys. They possibly look like the best team here in the last 4 or 5 weeks, where you can say that's been the most consistent team down the stretch, in the clutch. It hurts me a little bit to say, but I'm going to be real with y'all. They've been looking like the best team in football here the last 5 weeks. No bones about it. Ever since Amari Cooper showed up. Wow, what a difference it makes when you actually got a wide receiver, right? A really good one. You already have one of the best running backs. So there you go. Right now, if I'm not going to pick the Cowboys to go to the Super Bowl, but if they keep playing like this, they are the favorite in the NFC. But they got to keep playing like this. Don't switch up anything. Don't turn Dak Prescott into Patrick Mahomes. That's not going to work. Pick and choose when to go deep to Amari Cooper, but you got to set it up with Ezekiel Elliott. And that defense is going to be there. But these playoffs are going to be wonderful. Wonderful. This is like my brother said, this is the Royal Rumble. This is the Royal Rumble. These are guys, man, AFC, NFC, still a lot of questions on the wild card spot on both sides, but it's coming down to the nitty gritty. It's coming down to the end, full force. And that's all you want is you want a chance this weekend. Your team just needs to win this weekend. Fighting for the playoffs. Then you can start really breaking down, okay, what needs to happen? Or what are we looking like? Who are we going to match up with in the playoffs? And does it even matter? As long as we're the home team, we're going to win, right? And that's what it's all about. You want to have the home field advantage. That's definitely what it's all about. I feel like I'm missing something. I'm going to be real with y'all, but I write like some scribble and I don't know what I'm trying to put here. Oh, man. But yeah, I mean, Ravens, really impressive for most of the game in Arrowhead last week. But Lamar Jackson, as a rookie quarterback, still needs to get better passing the ball. He's great running the ball. He's slightly getting better passing the ball, but he needs to take a step up. But that defense is definitely going to help him. Ooh, that defense is looking nice. It always does, man. It just, I don't know what it is about the Ravens and defense. It just shows up week in, week out, especially when it's down to the end of the season. But when you got football on Thursday, Saturday, Sunday, and Monday, y'all got to be some lucky folks, man. Very lucky. That's when you know it's real. And this is where the real teams step up. No excuses. Everyone has injuries. I don't care if all your wide receivers are rookies, aka the Denver Broncos. And you don't even know who your tight end is. When you got tackles playing on your offensive line, you got 4 of them. Hey, man, you got to figure out how to win a game against Cleveland Browns if you're the Denver Broncos. You got to figure out how to win a game against the Giants if you're the Tennessee Titans. Indianapolis Colts versus the Cowboys on Sunday, man, shoot. There's a test for the Cowboys. Can you win on the road against Andrew Luck? That might tell you everything you need to know about the Dallas Cowboys. You think every week this is the test for the Cowboys. A couple weeks ago it was the Saints. Then it was the Philadelphia Eagles, the arch rival, the nemesis. Now you're going to Indy to play Luck. Bring the troops with you. Bring Amari, Ezekiel, that defense, that O-line. That's going to be a hell of a watch on Sunday. Promise you that. On Saturday, you have the Texans and Jets at 2 or 2:30, I believe, Mountain Time. Then you got the Denver Broncos at home against the Cleveland Browns at 6:30 p.m. Saturday night. Tomorrow, again, the Chargers, Phillip Rivers going against Patrick Mahomes and the Kansas City Chiefs. 10-3 versus 11-2 at Arrowhead. Man, that crowd's going to be ruckus. Tyreek Hill might play tomorrow. There was a lot of questions whether or not he was going to be ready. It's a real good shot he plays tomorrow, unless something came out recently. I'm giving y'all news that I heard maybe 2 hours ago. So if anything else popped off, then correct me, man. It's all right. Correct. I'm not going to be right all the time. Won't be right probably most of the time. I just give my opinions and it is what it is. I don't really care what the outcome is because I'm going to still talk to you like I was right. I was right about some things on Sunday, like my upset special. Let's just be real with it. Yeah, give me that credit. Y'all got to give me that. And shoot. No one was bold enough to say the Bears were going to beat the Rams. Come on. I was. I said it. Check out the tapes. Man, but this is going to be very interesting. And Saints, man, figure it out. New Orleans Saints, you have to figure it out. I picked you to go to the Super Bowl going against the Los Angeles Chargers. The Chargers have figured it out. New Orleans, you have to figure it out. You got 3 games to play your best football going into that bye week. Don't leave any questions going into that last week. You want that last week where you can say, you know what, we can just rest, guys. Or maybe play a half. We have this figured out. But something's not right there, man. Drew Brees, man, is that clock up? Tom Brady, shoot, he looked like he wasn't up yet. He's throwing touchdowns everywhere. I lost my fantasy league because I decided to put Aaron Rodgers in, which he played better, but if I would have put Tom Brady in, I would have won. No one would have started Tom Brady against the Dolphins. Come on, don't lie to yourself. None of y'all would have done that. So I don't feel that bad. I lost because I lost. It is whatever. I probably lost for some other reasons, but y'all don't care about that. We don't need to worry about that. I want to see Aaron Rodgers in the playoffs. That's the last thing I'm going to say. I want to see Aaron Rodgers in the playoffs and see what happens, man. That dude's magical. And I think that's what we want to see. We want to see badass quarterbacks in the playoffs, which is probably why we won't see Case Keenum. But it would be nice to see a Daniel Bryan type story in Case Keenum in the playoffs, but it's probably not going to happen. You know, Von Miller and Chubb, man, that would make a hell of a playoff experience with those dudes going after whatever quarterback they will go after. But let's take it game by game. Week 15. Thank you guys for joining me here. Really just talking back and forth about, the state of the NFL and where these teams are at and what's going to happen to these quarterbacks, man. We're going to continue that speculation. We're going to continue talking about that here on future shows, especially once the season winds down. Definitely going to be one of the topics because quarterbacks, this league is based on quarterbacks. And obviously, Friday is full force football Friday. We can really break down these games and see what games matter. 5% battery. I got to cut y'all out. Thank y'all for joining me here. I'll be back 2 days from today, Friday night for Full Force Football Friday. Talk about all the games. Thank you for joining me. Appreciate y'all. Love and respect. Do what you want to do in life. You can do it. I mean, whatever you have in your heart, you got to go do that. Pursue that. Don't listen to nobody else. Don't play out no one else's dream. Play out yours. Love yourself.